So what does your immune system have to do with your mood? Well, quite a lot actually, and I'll explain right after this. Hey there, welcome to the channel. When most people think of depression, anxiety, and other mood disorders, they think of chemical imbalances. And sure, that's part of the picture. But an increasing body of research suggests that what's going on in your immune system also plays a major role. That's right, your immune system may be messing with your mood. Now, that might sound surprising, but it's actually not all that shocking if you follow this channel. After all, we've explained how chronic inflammation can make you gain weight, how it can up your risk for cancer and speed up aging, among many other things. In a nutshell, when your body encounters stress, be it from a poor diet, illness, or some other assault, it responds by lighting up the inflammatory response. That sends immune cells into action to identify and neutralize threats like viruses and bacteria. And that process often involves cytokines. These are small proteins that serve as chemical messengers, enabling immune cells to communicate and coordinate their response. But they do more than that. Increasingly, researchers are finding that cytokines also influence brain chemistry. They do that by crossing the blood-brain barrier, a veil of tissue that protects the brain and regulates what goes in and out. When cytokines cross the blood-brain barrier, they bind to certain receptors and kick off signaling cascades that alter the activity of neurons. These days, scientists are busy mapping out all of the ways that different cytokines influence brain chemistry. But just to give you one example, interleukin-6, or IL-6, has been shown to decrease levels of brain-derived neurotrophic factor, or BDNF. As the name suggests, BDNF is important for the growth and maintenance of neurons. So IL-6 appears to harm the brain by decreasing BDNF. Meanwhile, elevated levels of another cytokine, tumor necrosis factor alpha, or TNF-alpha, have been linked to lower levels of serotonin, norepinephrine, and dopamine, all of which are key players in regulating mood. So far, researchers have linked this inflammatory influence to a range of psychiatric disorders, including depression, anxiety, obsessive-compulsive disorder, schizophrenia, and even autism spectrum disorder. And that's not all. Some studies have associated chronic inflammation with cognitive impairments like brain fog, memory loss, and difficulties concentrating. To dig deeper into the link between inflammation and mental health, researchers are turning to animal models of depression, such as rodents exposed to chronic social defeat stress, in which one animal is repeatedly bullied by another. Studies of these stressed-out rodents show that they have elevated levels of pro-inflammatory cytokines and depressed-like symptoms. What's more, they found that injecting these animals with anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen alleviates the symptoms. So the link between inflammation and depression seems pretty clear-cut in these models. But even if you don't have a rodent underling handing you a wedgie every day, chronic inflammation could still be affecting your mood. For instance, studies of humans have found links between elevated inflammatory markers and various mental health issues. A meta-analysis published in 2021, for example, examined the relationship between C-reactive protein, or CARP, an inflammatory marker, and depression. The researchers concluded that higher levels of CARP were indeed associated with increased rates of depression. Other studies have similarly linked elevated inflammatory markers to anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorder, and even temperament. And while none of this proves that inflammation causes these conditions, it suggests that whatever's going on in your immune system certainly doesn't help. But why would that be? Why would a little inflammation go traveling to your head and mess with your mind? Researchers are still figuring that out. But the good news is that they have some ideas. One possibility is that inflammation is a side effect of the body's fight or flight response to danger. When organisms first began to develop an immune system, researchers hypothesized that the ancient ancestors of modern-day immune cells had to travel throughout the body to identify threats. So as part of that patrol, they co-opted the stress response system, hijacking stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline to help them get where they needed to go fast. But the problem is that those stress hormones also activate the very same brain regions that regulate mood, attention, and memory. So it's possible that immune cells evolved to influence brain activity because they literally had to travel through the brain to get to where they needed to go. And over time, they developed a sophisticated crosstalk with the brain that extends beyond just getting out of the way of immune cells. For instance, immune cells can also directly sense dangers in the body and then alert the brain accordingly. For instance, immune cells can recognize pathogen-associated molecular patterns, or PAMPs, which are molecules that are present on microbes but not human cells. The immune cells can then send out signals to the brain telling it that there is an infection somewhere in the body. Then the brain can trigger appropriate behavioral changes, like making you feel tired so you're more likely to stay in bed and rest. Those sorts of instructions from the immune system help to explain why inflammation is associated with fatigue, one of the most common symptoms of depression. In fact, researchers have found that fatigue is a reliable sign of depression, and interventions that reduce fatigue tend to improve depressive symptoms. So there's clearly some sort of crosstalk between the two systems, but it's not entirely one way. As it turns out, your brain can also tell your immune system what to do. When you're feeling mentally stressed, your brain can send signals down to the spinal cord and out to the lymph nodes where immune cells hang out. Those signals can boost the activity of certain immune cells, causing them to release more cytokines, which in turn can affect your mood. That explains why being stressed out can make you feel physically run down. In other words, your brain and immune system work together to keep tabs on each other, and that communication is handled by the very same chemicals that can affect your mood. So when things get out of balance, it can really throw you for a loop. Of course, a little inflammation isn't necessarily a bad thing. After all, immune responses are essential for keeping us healthy. So there's no need to try to completely eliminate inflammation. Instead, the goal is to achieve balance, keeping the system in check so it doesn't run amok. And there are plenty of ways that you can do that, like getting enough sleep, eating a balanced diet, and incorporating regular movement into your daily routine. All of those things have been shown to reduce inflammation. Not only that, but they also promote good sleep, which helps regulate the immune system and improve mood. Sleep helps keep inflammation under control by reducing the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines. It also promotes the production of anti-inflammatory cytokines. Good nutrition can help too. Diets high in sugar and saturated fats can promote inflammation, while diets rich in fruits, vegetables, and whole grains tend to have the opposite effect. Exercise can help too. Studies have found that regular physical activity reduces inflammation by promoting the release of anti-inflammatory cytokines. Plus, exercise improves mood by increasing levels of BDNF, the molecule we mentioned earlier that gets suppressed by inflammation. And surprisingly, even a single bout of exercise can improve mood for up to 24 hours afterward. In other words, working out may be one of the fastest ways to lift your spirits. But beyond diet and exercise, there are also promising treatments aimed at directly targeting inflammation to treat mood disorders. One approach involves giving patients anti-inflammatory drugs like ibuprofen or other non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs, or NSAIDs. Studies suggest that these drugs may alleviate depressive symptoms in some cases. Another strategy is to give patients monoclonal antibodies that target specific inflammatory molecules like TNF-alpha. Monoclonal antibodies are designed to latch onto a particular molecule and either neutralize it or flag it for destruction. While clinical trials of this approach have shown mixed results, it does seem to help some patients. Ultimately, the connection between inflammation and mood is complex. It probably varies from person to person depending on genetics, life experiences, and other factors. But there's no denying that whatever is going on in your immune system influences what's going on in your brain. So the next time you feel like total crap because you woke up on the wrong side of the bed, you'll know what to blame. And the next time you wake up feeling fantastic after a great night's sleep, you'll know what to thank.